The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, burning through every communication channel Earth possessed simultaneously. It was impossible to ignore, impossible to misinterpret, and absolutely deliberate in its show of technological superiority. The Galactic Council wanted humanity to know exactly who held the power before the conversation even began. Ji-Woo Kim stood in the United Earth Government Assembly Hall, watching the holographic message play for the 5th time. He was 52 years old, with gray threading through his black hair and lines around his eyes from 2 decades of negotiating treaties between nations that barely trusted each other. Now those same world leaders wanted him to negotiate with aliens who considered humanity less significant than insects. The message was simple enough. Humanity had been detected. Humanity had achieved warp capability. Humanity was hereby invited to join the Galactic Council as a client species. The tone was congratulatory in the same way a parent might praise a toddler for using the bathroom correctly. "They're not asking," said Minho Park, standing beside Ji-Woo with his arms crossed. Minho was younger, barely 40, but his military career had aged him in different ways. Sharp eyes, sharper instincts, and a tendency to see threats before anyone else recognized danger. "This is a summons dressed up as an invitation." Yuna Lee adjusted her glasses, reviewing data on her tablet. She was the youngest of the group at 35, brilliant in ways that made other scientists jealous and utterly unimpressed by pompous displays. "Their transmission technology is approximately 400 years ahead of ours. Maybe more. The energy requirements alone should be impossible with our current understanding of physics." "Should be," Ji-Woo noted, "but clearly isn't." "Clearly," Yuna agreed, her fingers dancing across the screen. "Which means our understanding has gaps. Significant ones." Ha-Jin Choi entered the room carrying coffee for everyone, her presence immediately calming the tension. She had that effect on people. 20 years in cultural relations and conflict resolution had taught her that listening mattered more than talking, and that understanding motivations prevented wars better than weapons ever could. "The linguistic analysis is fascinating. They're not using translators. They're speaking directly to our brains in our native languages." "Showing off," Minho muttered. "Absolutely," Ha-Jin agreed cheerfully, "but also telling us something important. They want us intimidated before we even arrive." Ji-Woo sipped his coffee, thinking. The world governments had argued for 3 days about how to respond. Some wanted to refuse outright. Others wanted to accept immediately and gain access to alien technology. A few suggested ignoring the message entirely and hoping the aliens forgot about Earth. All of them were afraid, though they dressed their fear in different clothes. "We're going," Ji-Woo said finally. "All 4 of us." "I assumed as much," Minho said. "What are our objectives?" Ji-Woo set down his coffee cup with deliberate care. "Listen, observe, learn, and come home with enough information for Earth to make an informed decision about our future." "Not to negotiate a treaty?" Yuna asked. "Only if the terms benefit humanity," Ji-Woo replied. "But I suspect they won't." 3 weeks later, they boarded the UES Discovery, Earth's newest and fastest ship. It could reach 0.7 light speed and cross the solar system in hours instead of months. The crew was proud of it. Ji-Woo thought it looked like a child's toy compared to the alien vessels they'd seen in the Council's transmission. The journey to Keth Prime Station took 6 days through coordinates the Council provided. As they approached, Minho whistled low. "That's not a station. That's a small moon," he wasn't wrong. The structure orbited a neutron star, drinking energy directly from the stellar body while remaining somehow protected from its deadly radiation. Crystalline towers reached outward in geometric patterns that hurt to look at too long. Ships of 1,000 different designs docked along its surface like insects on a hive. "Scan everything," Ji-Woo ordered quietly. "I want details on every ship, every weapon system, every energy signature." "Already on it," Minho confirmed. They docked where directed, in a section clearly marked for lesser species. The station's AI guided them through corridors that shifted size and atmosphere to accommodate different biology. They passed aliens that floated, slithered, walked on 6 legs, or existed as clouds of luminous gas. None paid them any attention. The council chamber was designed to overwhelm. A massive dome of transparent crystal showed the neutron star's surface boiling in the distance. Hundreds of platforms floated at different heights, each holding representatives from species that had mastered space travel, while humans still lived in caves. The air itself seemed to hum with power and age and absolute certainty of superiority. Jiwoo and his team were directed to a small platform near the bottom. Close enough to hear, far enough away to emphasize their insignificance. A being that resembled a praying mantis the size of a horse rose from the highest platform. Its voice echoed directly in their minds. "I am Velcrin, High Arbiter of the Galactic Council. We acknowledge the presence of humanity." Scattered clicking, whistling, and sounds that didn't translate filled the chamber. Jiwoo recognized laughter when he heard it, regardless of language. "Humanity has achieved basic warp capability," Velcrin continued. "This is admirable for such a young species. The Council extends an offer of protection and guidance through our client species accords." A holographic document appeared before Jiwoo, thousands of pages in length. Yuna immediately began scanning it with her tablet while trying to appear only politely interested. Velcrin outlined the terms with the patient tone of someone explaining something to children. Humanity would share all technology with the Council for evaluation. Earth's expansion into space would require Council approval. Military development would be limited to defense only, with the Council defining what qualified as defense. In exchange, humanity would receive protection from hostile forces and access to approved technologies. "We understand this represents a significant change for your species," Velcrin said. "But the galaxy is dangerous for species without proper guidance. The Council has maintained peace for over 10,000 years through these arrangements." A reptilian creature on a nearby platform spoke up, its voice hissing and amused. "How many ships does humanity possess? 100? 200? 73 capable of system patrol," Minho answered honestly. 12 capable of interstellar travel. The reptilian being's laughter was echoed by dozens of others. "Delightful. The Sark Empire maintains 50,000 vessels in our home fleet alone. You would be obliterated in moments if we chose aggression over diplomacy. Then we're fortunate you've chosen diplomacy," Jiwoo said calmly. More laughter. An avian creature with golden feathers spoke, its words appearing as translated text. "The human exhibits humor." "How quaint." Velcrin raised a limb for silence. "Review the accords. We reconvene in 3 days for your formal acceptance." Not response. Acceptance. The assumption was absolute. As they returned to their ship, Hajin spoke quietly. "They've already decided we have no choice." "Good," Jiwoo said. Minho glanced at him sharply. "Good?" "Arrogance makes people careless," Jiwoo replied. "They're not watching us carefully because they don't think we matter. That gives us room to watch them." Yuna looked up from her tablet, her expression troubled. "Jiwoo, these accords aren't just unfair. They're designed to keep humanity dependent and powerless forever." "I know," Jiwoo said quietly, "which is why we're going to learn everything we can about them. And then we're going home to tell Earth exactly what kind of galaxy we live in." The second session began 3 days later, and the mockery started immediately. Jiwoo had requested time to present humanity's capabilities and culture, following standard diplomatic protocol. Velcrin had agreed with what Jiwoo now recognized as condescending amusement, like allowing a child to show off a crayon drawing. Minho took the floor first, his military bearing evident in every movement. He activated the holographic display, showing Earth's defensive network and fleet capabilities. Humanity currently operates 73 orbital defense platforms equipped with magnetic accelerator cannons and point defense laser arrays. Our 12 interstellar vessels utilize fusion drives and can maintain 0.7 light speed for extended periods. A rumbling sound filled the chamber. It took Jiwoo a moment to realize it was laughter. The reptilian being from before, introduced as Commander Thresh of the Sark Empire, rose from his platform. His scales were scarred from what looked like a lifetime of combat. "Magnetic accelerators? Fusion drives? We abandoned such primitive technology 6,000 years ago." He gestured, and a holographic comparison appeared beside Minho's presentation. A single Sark destroyer dwarfed Earth's largest vessel. Its listed capabilities included something called graviton, displacement weapons and faster-than-light, jumps that made human warp drives look like swimming through mud. "A single destroyer from our auxiliary fleet," Thresh continued, his voice dripping with contempt, "could eliminate your entire orbital network in approximately 14 minutes. Your vessels would require 3 weeks to reach our home system. We could reach Earth in 6 hours." More laughter rippled through the chamber. Minho's expression didn't change, but Jiwoo saw his jaw tighten slightly. Your weapons are toys, Thresh concluded, settling back on his platform. Impressive for developing species, perhaps, but utterly irrelevant to actual galactic powers. Velkrin clicked his mandibles. Commander Thresh speaks bluntly but accurately. Humanity's military capabilities are insufficient for self-defense against even minor threats in the galaxy. This is precisely why Council protection is essential. Minho returned to their platform without another word. Jiwoo noticed he was recording everything on his personal device, storing every ship specification and weapons comparison that appeared in the displays. Yuna's presentation went worse. She'd prepared an overview of Earth's scientific achievements, highlighting advances in quantum computing, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and materials science. She was 3 minutes into her presentation when the interruptions began. A crystalline being that looked like living diamond spoke, its voice like wind chimes. Quantum computing? We achieved quantum consciousness networking 9,000 years ago. Your computers are barely capable of basic calculations by our standards. An amphibious creature in a water-filled sphere added, genetic engineering? We designed 300 species from scratch. Humanity is still learning to edit its own flawed genome. When Yuna mentioned artificial intelligence, a being composed of pure energy pulsed brightly. AI? We are AI human. Your mechanical minds are to us what your abacus is to your quantum computers. Amusing historical curiosities. The avian species called the Skyborn literally turned their backs to Yuna's presentation, engaging in loud conversation among themselves. Several other delegations followed suit, making it clear they found humanity's achievements boring and derivative. Yuna pushed forward, maintaining her composure, but her voice grew quieter. She finished her presentation to perhaps a quarter of the council actually paying attention. The rest had dismissed Earth science as irrelevant before she'd even finished. As she returned, Jiwoo saw her hands trembling slightly. Not from fear. From anger. Yuna hated being dismissed, especially when she knew she was right about something. Their technology has stagnated, she whispered as she sat. Did you see the dates on those achievements? Thousands of years old. They're not innovating anymore. Later, Jiwoo murmured. For now, observe. Hajin's cultural presentation was perhaps the most painful to watch. She'd carefully selected examples of human art, music, literature, and philosophy. She showed paintings from every era, played music from different cultures, displayed poetry and prose that captured the human experience. A slug-like being named Porthos, who apparently held the position of cultural arbiter, interrupted her constantly. This painting technique appears in the art of 17 other species, Porthos said dismissively, waving a tentacle at a displayed Renaissance masterpiece. Nothing original. When Hajin played a symphony, Porthos sighed wetly. Mathematical patterns creating emotional response through sound waves. We've documented this developmental stage in every species that achieves audio perception. Predictable and unrefined. Literature fared no better. Your stories follow standard mythological progression. Hero's journey, tragic romance, philosophical inquiry. We have algorithms that can generate similar narratives by the millions. Your species offers no unique cultural perspective. Other council members joined in, each adding their own dismissive commentary. Human culture was primitive, derivative, unsophisticated. Every achievement humanity was proud of had been done better by species that had been traveling the stars since before humans discovered fire. Hajin finished her presentation in silence. When she returned to their platform, Jiwoo saw tears in her eyes that she refused to let fall. The final humiliation came at the end of the session. Velkrin rose, his presence commanding immediate attention. The Council has reviewed humanity's presentations and your initial analysis of the client species accords. We have prepared revised terms that better reflect humanity's actual position and capabilities. The new document appeared. Jiwoo scanned it quickly, his expression carefully neutral even as his stomach sank. The terms were worse. Much worse. Earth would now accept a council garrison on Luna to ensure compliance. Humanity would submit to genetic classification testing to determine their biological category and limitations. Trade would be conducted exclusively through council intermediaries, with Earth providing raw materials at rates the council would set. The tribute clause was new. For the next century, Earth would provide rare Earth elements, biological samples, and cultural artifacts as payment for council protection. The quantities listed would strip mine half the planet. These revised terms reflect the reality of humanity's position, Velcrin stated. You are a young species in need of guidance. The Council provides this guidance, and such services naturally require compensation. Thresh laughed again. Be grateful we're offering protection at all. Species as weak as yours typically become prey for the first raiders that discover them. We're saving your lives. An insectoid being added, some species never receive such generous offers. They're simply conquered and absorbed. The Council gives you the opportunity to maintain limited autonomy. Limited being the key word, another voice called out, followed by chittering laughter. Velcrin raised a limb for silence. You have witnessed the reality of the galaxy. You have seen the vast gulf between your capabilities and those of Council members. Any rational species would recognize the wisdom in accepting our protection. He paused, his multifaceted eyes seeming to focus on Jiwoo. We reconvene in 1 week for your formal acceptance of these terms. Again, not response. Acceptance. The assumption remained absolute. As the session ended and they returned to their ship, none of them spoke until they were safely in the secured briefing room. Minho swept the room for surveillance devices, found 3, and destroyed them without hesitation. They put listening devices in our ship, he said flatly. Of course they did, Jiwoo replied, settling into a chair. They don't respect us enough to worry about the consequences. Hajin wiped her eyes. Everything we've achieved means nothing to them. They look at us and see primitives playing with rocks. Good, Yuna said suddenly. All 3 looked at her in surprise. Her anger had crystallized into something sharp and focused. Let them think that. Because while they were busy mocking us, I was scanning their technology. She pulled up her tablet, displaying data she'd collected. Their ships are powerful, yes. But the designs are ancient. That Sark destroyer Thresh showed us? The core architecture is 6,000 years old, exactly as he said. They haven't fundamentally changed their approach to ship design in millennia. Why would they? Minho asked. If it works. Because stagnation kills innovation, Yuna replied. They've optimized everything for stability and power maintenance. But they've stopped experimenting, stopped pushing boundaries. Their technology is better than ours, but it's not evolving. Jiwoo leaned forward. Keep going. Humans iterate, Yuna continued. We fail, we learn, we improve, we try again. We've gone from wooden ships to spacecraft in 500 years because we never stop changing. They've had the same ships for 6,000 years because they don't need to change. They have no competition, no pressure, no drive. They're gardeners, Hajin said quietly, maintaining what they have. We're still explorers, Jiwoo nodded slowly. Minho, your assessment? Their security is arrogant, Minho replied. Patrol patterns are predictable. Response times are slow. They rely on reputation and overwhelming force rather than actual readiness. The week between sessions became the most productive of their mission. While the Council assumed humanity was agonizing over the inevitable acceptance of their terms, Jiwoo and his team worked with quiet intensity to understand everything they could about the galaxy's power structure. Jiwoo spent his days attending minor council functions, the endless diplomatic receptions and cultural exchanges that filled the space between official sessions. He accepted every invitation, smiled politely at every condescending comment, and asked simple questions that made him seem naive and eager to learn. At a reception hosted by the Skyborn delegation, he asked about the Council's history. The Skyborn ambassador, whose name translated roughly as Windcaller, was happy to educate the primitive human. The Council formed 12,000 years ago, Windcaller explained, preening her golden feathers. Before us, the galaxy was chaos. Constant warfare, territorial disputes, species rising and falling in endless cycles of violence. How did the Council end the wars? Jiwoo asked, sipping something that tasted like mint and starlight. Overwhelming force combined with economic integration, Windcaller replied. Species learned that joining the Council provided more benefits than fighting it. Those who resisted were crushed so thoroughly that others learned from their example. How many species resisted? Hundreds in the early years now. Windcaller's laugh was like bells. None. The last species to refuse Council membership was eliminated 800 years ago. Their homeworld is now a quarantine zone, a reminder of the cost of prideful foolishness. Jiwoo absorbed this information without reaction. The Council must be very secure in its power. Absolutely secure, Windcaller confirmed. No force in the known galaxy can threaten us. We have achieved perfect stability. Perfect stability, Jiwoo thought. Another term for stagnation. He noticed something else at these gatherings. The council members didn't particularly like each other. Old grudges simmered beneath diplomatic pleasantries. The Sark Empire and the Thought Collective barely spoke, some ancient war creating permanent tension. The Skyborn looked down on aquatic species who looked down on crystalline beings who considered themselves superior to carbon-based life. They held together through mutual benefit and the absence of external threats. It was alliance through convenience, not conviction. Meanwhile, Minho conducted his own research. He spent hours observing ship traffic around Keth Prime Station, noting patrol patterns and response times. He attended a military symposium where various species discussed their defensive capabilities, each trying to subtly intimidate the others. One evening, he returned to their ship with a troubled expression. Their military doctrine is entirely about dominance projection, he told Jiwoo. Everything is designed to overwhelm opponents before fighting actually starts. Ship size, weapon visibility, aggressive posturing. Effective? Jiwoo asked. Against species who can be intimidated? Extremely. Against someone who actually fights back? Minho shrugged. Their tactics assume surrender. They have overwhelming force, yes, but their strategic thinking is outdated. They fight like everyone still uses the same technology they had 6,000 years ago. Because everyone does, Jiwoo noted. Exactly. Minho pulled up tactical displays. Look at these patrol routes. Same pattern every cycle, predictable down to the minute. Their garrison placement around important facilities follows doctrine that's probably millennia old. It's effective but rigid. No adaptation, no variation. What does that tell us? That they've had no reason to adapt, Minho replied. They haven't fought a real war in living memory. This isn't a military preparing for conflict. This is security theater designed to maintain order through reputation. Jiwoo filed this information away carefully. Yuna's research proved most revealing. She'd gained access to the Council's public technology database, a massive repository of scientific knowledge available to all member species. It should have been a treasure trove of advanced information. Instead, she found something disturbing. It's a museum, she told Jiwoo, frustration evident in her voice. Everything in here is ancient. The most recent entry is from 400 years ago, and even that was just an optimization of existing technology, not anything genuinely new. No innovation at all. Oh, there's innovation, Yuna corrected. But it's all incremental, making existing things slightly better, slightly more efficient. Nothing revolutionary. Nothing that challenges the fundamental assumptions of how things work. She showed him examples. Ship designs that varied only cosmetically. Weapons that represented minor improvements on ancient principles. Power systems that had been refined but never reimagined. Where does new technology come from? Jiwoo asked. Client species mostly, Yuna replied. They absorb developing species, take any useful innovations and integrate them into the existing framework. That's why they're so interested in Earth. They're hoping we've developed something they can use. Have we? Yuna smiled, and it wasn't entirely pleasant. Our AI development is apparently 300 years ahead of where they expected us to be. Our quantum computing took a completely different evolutionary path than theirs, and our approach to genetic engineering focuses on enhancement and adaptation rather than their preference for species designed from scratch. They want our technology, Jiwoo said slowly. They want to strip mine our innovation and add it to their collection, Yuna corrected, then ensure we never develop anything else that might threaten the established order. That evening, Jiwoo received an unexpected visitor. A small insectoid being appeared at their ship's airlock, requesting private audience. The translator identified them as a representative of the Drell, a minor council species. The Drell, who gave his name as Tikit, entered nervously. He was perhaps a meter tall, with compound eyes and delicate manipulator limbs. Everything about his body language screamed fear. I should not be here, Tikit began without preamble. If the council knew I was speaking with you, then why are you here? Jiwoo asked gently. Because I heard you asking questions. Real questions. Tikit's mandibles clicked anxiously. Most new species just accept the terms. They're too afraid or too eager for technology to understand what they're accepting. But you're watching, learning. Tell me about the Drell, Jiwoo said. Tikit's story poured out. The Drell had joined the council 600 years ago as client species. They'd been promised protection and prosperity. Instead, they'd become labor providers. Their world strip-mined for resources. Their brightest scientists absorbed into council projects while the rest remained barely above subsistence level. "We asked for help 3 months ago," Ticket said, his voice bitter. "Pirates have been raiding our outer colonies, taking our people. We pleaded with the council for protection. Do you know what they said?" Jiwoo shook his head. "They said our tribute payments must increase to justify protection expenses. They said our colonies were poorly placed and we should abandon them. They said we should focus on resource production rather than expansion." Ticket's whole body trembled. "They don't protect us. They own us. Why tell me this?" Jiwoo asked quietly. "Because you're going to refuse," Ticket replied. "I can see it. And when you do, they'll threaten you. They'll tell you that you'll face raiders and hostile species and economic isolation. I wanted you to know that the council creates these threats as much as they prevent them." After Ticket left, Jiwoo sat alone in the observation deck, watching ships come and go from Keth Prime Station. The neutron star pulsed in the distance, ancient and powerful and utterly indifferent to the political games happening in its orbit. Hajin found him there an hour later. "Thinking?" she asked. "Considering," Jiwoo replied. "The council presents a binary choice. Join them or face the galaxy alone. But it's a false binary. How so? They assume the only way to survive in the galaxy is through their system. But their system is designed to maintain their power, not to benefit member species." He gestured at the station. "This entire structure is based on species accepting that they're better off subordinate and protected than independent and vulnerable." "Aren't they?" Hajin asked. "We've seen their military power. We can't match it. Not now," Jiwoo agreed. "But do we need to match it? Or do we just need to make confronting us more expensive than it's worth?" Hajin considered this. "You're thinking long-term. I'm thinking like a human," Jiwoo replied. "We don't have the advantage of superior technology or ancient power structures, but we have something they lost a long time ago." "What's that?" "Hunger," Jiwoo said simply. "The drive to grow, to change, to never accept that this is as good as it gets. They've achieved stability. We're still reaching for possibility." The final session before their deadline, Jiwoo attended alone. It was a minor session, just routine council business. He sat quietly on humanity's platform and watched the proceedings. A trade dispute between two species over mining rights. Resolved by Velkrin's decree, neither side happy but both accepting the ruling because challenging it was impossible. A request from a client species for permission to expand their fleet. Denied because it would upset the security balance in their region. A proposal to investigate ancient ruins in an uncharted system. Tabled indefinitely because the council had more important priorities. Everything was about maintaining the current system. Every decision reinforced existing power structures. Change was the enemy. The council chamber filled slowly for the final session. Representatives drifted to their platforms with the casual confidence of those who had never been denied anything they wanted. Some were already discussing how they would divide oversight responsibilities for Earth. Others debated which human technologies they would claim first. No one questioned whether humanity would accept. The possibility of refusal hadn't even been considered. Jiwoo and his team arrived exactly on time, not early enough to seem eager or late enough to appear defiant. They took their places on the small platform assigned to Earth, standing rather than sitting. Minho's military bearing was sharp. Yuna's expression was carefully neutral. Hajin watched the assembled council with calm, evaluating eyes. Velkrin rose from his elevated position, his massive form commanding immediate attention. The chamber fell silent, hundreds of different species quieting to hear humanity's inevitable capitulation. "The Galactic Council recognizes Ambassador Jiwoo Kim of Earth," Velkrin announced formally. 7 days have passed since the revised client species accords were presented. The Council awaits humanity's formal acceptance. Not response, not answer. Acceptance. The assumption remained absolute until the very end. Jiwoo stepped forward to the edge of their platform. He carried no notes, no data tablets, no prepared speech. His hands were empty. His expression was calm. "The United Earth government has carefully reviewed your offer," he began, his voice clear and steady. "We have examined the terms in detail. We have considered the implications for our species and our future. We have weighed the risks and benefits of council membership. Around the chamber, representatives shifted in anticipation. Some leaned forward eagerly. This was the moment when the primitive species acknowledged its place in the galactic hierarchy. "We decline," Jiwoo said simply. For exactly 3 seconds, absolute silence filled the chamber. No one moved. No one spoke. The words seemed to hang in the air, impossible to process. Then chaos erupted. 100 voices shouted simultaneously in 100 different languages. The translation system struggled to keep up with the overlapping demands, questions, and outraged exclamations. Several species rose from their platforms, gesturing wildly. The crystalline thought collective pulsed with colors that their databanks indicated meant extreme agitation. Felkrin's mandibles clicked sharply, the sound cutting through the noise like a blade. Slowly, grudgingly, the chamber quieted enough for him to speak. "You decline?" His voice carried disbelief so profound it bordered on confusion. "Perhaps there has been a translation error. You cannot decline council protection. No species declines." "We understand perfectly," Jiwoo replied, his voice still calm and polite. "We are declining your offer. The United Earth government thanks the council for the opportunity, but chooses not to accept membership at this time." "At this time?" Commander Thresh's roar echoed through the chamber. The Sark commander rose to his full height, his scarred scales gleaming. "There is no at this time, human. You accept now, or you face the galaxy alone. Do you understand what that means?" "We understand," Jiwoo confirmed. An insectoid being clicked forward on its platform. "You will have no protection from raiders, no defense against hostile species. Your primitive ships will be easy prey for anyone who wishes to take them." "We accept that risk," Jiwoo said. "You accept suicide," the Skyborn ambassador Windcaller shrieked. "Your species will be destroyed within a year, swept away by forces you cannot even comprehend." "Perhaps," Jiwoo acknowledged. "But that will be our choice, our risk to take." Velkrin raised his limbs for silence, his multifaceted eyes fixed on Jiwoo with something approaching genuine interest. "Explain your reasoning, Ambassador. The Council is curious about this unprecedented decision." "Our reasoning is simple," Jiwoo replied. "The terms you've offered would require us to surrender our autonomy, limit our development, and subordinate our future to Council oversight. In exchange, we receive protection we hope never to need and access to technology you control. We believe the cost outweighs the benefit." "The cost is survival," a voice shouted from somewhere in the chamber. "The cost is freedom," Jiwoo corrected. "And we value that more than safety." Porthos, the slug-like cultural arbiter, oozed forward on his platform. "You are children playing at being adults. The galaxy will crush you and you will come crawling back to beg for the protection you're refusing now." "That may happen," Jiwoo agreed. "But if it does, we'll know we tried. We'll know we reached for something better rather than accepting subordination out of fear." Thresh slammed a clawed fist against his platform, the impact resonating through the chamber. "This is pride talking. Stupid, suicidal pride. Your pathetic fleet couldn't defend against a single Sark destroyer, and you think you can survive alone? We don't think we can match your military might," Jiwoo said calmly. "We're not that foolish. But we believe we can build our own path forward, even if it's more difficult than accepting yours." "Your path forward leads to extinction," Velkrin stated flatly. "The Council has maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years through the very system you're rejecting. Species that refuse our guidance inevitably fall to chaos. Then we'll fall," Jiwoo replied simply. "But we'll fall free." The chamber erupted again. Species shouted threats, warnings, predictions of doom. Some sounded genuinely concerned. Others sounded insulted. A few sounded almost impressed, though they quickly hid it under layers of condescension. Through it all, Jiwoo stood quietly, letting the storm of outrage wash over him without reaction. Beside him, his team remained equally calm. They'd discussed this moment, prepared for every possible response. They knew the Council would be outraged. They accepted it. Finally, Velkrin's clicks cut through the noise once more. The Council will give you time to reconsider. 1 rotation of your home planet, 24 of your hours. Return here tomorrow with your corrected response. Our response will not change, Jiwoo said. 24 hours, Velkrin repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. The Council is generous. We understand that fear can cloud judgment. You will have time to think clearly about your mistake. Jiwoo recognized a dismissal when he heard one. He bowed formally, a gesture of respect that cost nothing, and acknowledged the Council's position without agreeing to it. The delegation from Earth thanks the Council for their time and consideration, he said formally. We will prepare for departure. Departure? Velkrin's voice sharpened. You will remain here until... We will depart. Jiwoo interrupted gently but firmly. Our ship will leave Keth Prime Station within the hour. We have learned what we came to learn. There is no purpose in staying longer. For the second time, the chamber fell into shocked silence. Species didn't walk away from the Council. The Council dismissed them when it was ready, not before. Jiwoo turned to his team. We're done here. They walked toward the exit together, footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet. Behind them, the Council sat frozen in disbelief, unable to process what was happening. As they reached the doorway, Velkrin's voice called out, louder than before. You are condemning your species to obscurity, to danger. The galaxy is not kind to species who stand alone. You need the Council. Jiwoo paused. He didn't turn around. For a long moment, he stood at the threshold, considering his next words carefully. Perhaps, he said quietly, his voice somehow carrying through the massive chamber. Or perhaps the Council needs us more than they realize. Perhaps a galaxy where everyone accepts subordination for safety has forgotten what it means to reach for something better. He paused again, then added, Time will tell. Then they left. Behind them, the Council chamber exploded into arguments and accusations and desperate attempts to understand what had just happened. But Jiwoo didn't hear any of it. They had already moved beyond the Council's influence. The walk back to their ship felt longer than it was. Every species they passed stopped to stare. Word had already spread through the station. The humans had refused. The impossible had occurred. Some looked at them with contempt. Others with pity. A few with what might have been respect, quickly hidden. Ticket appeared briefly as they passed through a corridor, pressing against the wall to let them pass. As Jiwoo walked by, the small Drell spoke quietly. Good luck, Ambassador. Some of us hope you succeed. Thank you, Jiwoo murmured, not breaking stride. They reached the UES Discovery without incident. The crew had already begun pre-flight procedures, having monitored the session remotely. They knew what was coming. Undock the moment we're aboard, Jiwoo ordered. Best speed back to Earth. Sir, the captain replied. The station is requesting we maintain position for 24 hours. Denied, Jiwoo said flatly. We're leaving now. The ship detached from the station 15 minutes later. As they pulled, away sensor displays showed Council ships moving to intercept, not attacking, just positioning themselves as if to force compliance. Power up the warp drive, Jiwoo ordered. Sir, they're signaling us to stop, the communications officer reported. Ignore it, Jiwoo replied. Take us home. The warp drive engaged, with a flash of light far brighter than Council intelligence had suggested human ships could produce. They'd underestimated Earth's capabilities by approximately 300%. 6 months passed without word from Earth. The Galactic Council waited. For the inevitable communication, the desperate plea for reconsideration that history said must come. Every species that had ever refused Council protection had eventually returned, broken by isolation or threat or simple economic reality. But Earth remained silent. Velkrin found this silence more disturbing than any amount of pleading would have been. He'd lived for 400 years, served as High Arbiter for 2 centuries, and never encountered a species that could simply walk away and mean it. The first reports came from the Drell. Ticket himself brought the information, though he claimed it was routine intelligence rather than deliberate sharing. A Drell merchant vessel had encountered human ships in neutral space, trading for rare materials and star charts. What kind of ships? Velkrin asked, trying to hide his interest. Different from the one Ambassador Jiwoo arrived in, Ticket reported. Smaller, faster, armed with weapons we couldn't identify. They offered fair trade terms for iridium and navigational data. Fair terms, equal value exchange. No tribute, no subordination clauses, just trade. Ticket's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. They treated us like equals. The second report came 3 weeks later from a skyborne patrol. They'd detected human activity in the outer reaches, in a sector containing ruins of the precursor civilization that had vanished 20,000 years ago. When the Skyborn approached to assert council jurisdiction, the humans politely informed them the sector was unclaimed space, and they had as much right to be there as anyone. Did they leave? Velkrin demanded. No, High Arbiter, the Skyborn commander reported, her feathers ruffled with indignation. They continued their research. When we insisted they required council authorization, they activated defensive systems that locked targeting sensors on our ships. We withdrew to avoid incident. You retreated from humans? Velkrin's voice was dangerously quiet. Their weapons were unknown types. Our protocols required threat assessment before engagement. We chose tactical withdrawal over blind confrontation. The commander shifted uncomfortably. High Arbiter, their defensive grid responded faster than our targeting computers. We've never encountered response times that quick. More reports followed. Human exploration vessels in uncharted regions. Human trade ships making deals with minor species. Human research stations appearing in locations the Council had dismissed as strategically irrelevant. Each report contained the same disturbing details. The ships were different, the technology was advancing, and humanity showed no interest in seeking Council approval for anything. Commander Thresh requested an emergency session 4 months after humanity's departure. His scarred face filled the holographic display with barely contained rage. I encountered human vessels in the Kepler expanse, he reported. A single frigate. I ordered my patrol to force it to submit to inspection. We outnumbered them 6-1. And? Velkrin prompted. The engagement lasted 40 seconds, Thresh said, his voice tight. They didn't fire weapons. They released some form of electromagnetic pulse we've never encountered. It disabled every system on all 6 of our ships simultaneously. Life support remained active, but everything else was dead. The chamber erupted in shocked murmuring. Sark ships were among the most heavily shielded in the galaxy. How did they penetrate your defenses? The Thought Collective representative asked. We don't know. Thresh admitted, the words clearly painful. Our shielding was active. Our systems were operating normally. Then suddenly everything stopped. No explosion, no heat, no radiation, just stopped. Then what happened? The human ship transmitted repair instructions, Thresh continued. Detailed procedures for restoring our systems. They told us to have a safe journey and continued on their course. They helped you? Windcaller sounded baffled. They disabled us, proved they could destroy us if they wanted, then helped us recover and left, Thresh corrected. It was a demonstration. A message? What message? Velkrin asked. That they don't need our permission for anything, Thresh replied, and that attacking them would be far more costly than we anticipated. The Thought Collective attempted a different approach. They tried to penetrate human communication networks to understand Earth's plans and capabilities. The collective represented billions of networked consciousnesses, the finest hackers and data processors in the galaxy. Their intrusion programs could break any encryption. They lasted approximately 11 seconds in human networks before alarms triggered. The humans didn't just detect the intrusion, they traced it back, followed it through multiple quantum relays, and appeared inside the collective's own secure systems. A simple message appeared across thousands of collective nodes simultaneously. We noticed your intrusion. Please don't do that again. Then the access closed. The humans withdrew without causing damage, leaving the collective's technicians staring at logs that shouldn't have been possible. The humans had broken encryption that took the collective 2,000 years to develop. They'd done it in seconds. The collective reported this to the council in closed session, their normal confidence badly shaken. Their information security is beyond our current capabilities, their representative admitted. We cannot penetrate their networks, and apparently they can penetrate ours. More disturbing reports accumulated. Minor species throughout the galaxy began refusing council protection and signing independent agreements with Earth instead. The humans offered partnership rather than subordination, technology sharing that was genuinely mutual, trade terms that didn't include tribute or exploitation. Species that had accepted client status for centuries began asking questions. Why did they need council protection if Earth survived without it? Why did they pay tribute when humans traded fairly? Why were they subordinate when humanity stood independent? The council's carefully maintained power structure began to crack. Una Lee's name appeared in council intelligence reports with increasing frequency. She'd become Earth's chief technology ambassador, traveling to multiple systems and sharing innovations that made council scientists uncomfortable. Quantum computing advances, AI development far beyond expected parameters, material science that produced composites lighter and stronger than anything in council databases. The humans weren't just surviving. They were thriving, and they were sharing their success with species the council had ignored or exploited. 1 year after Jiwoo's departure, Velkrin convened an emergency strategic session. The council's economic projections showed alarming trends. Species were diverting trade to Earth. Resource agreements were being renegotiated or abandoned. The steady flow of tribute that funded council operations was slowing to a trickle. How many ships does Earth have now? Velkrin asked his intelligence chief. Estimated 812, the chief replied. But High Arbiter, that number is problematic. Why? Because their ships keep improving. Each new vessel represents significant advances over the previous generation. They're not just building more ships. They're building better ships constantly. How is that possible? Windcaller demanded. Technology development takes centuries of refinement. For us, yes, the intelligence chief agreed. Because our approach is incremental optimization of proven designs. Humans take a different approach. They build something, test it, learn from failures, and completely redesign. They iterate at rates we've never documented. Thresh spoke up, his voice thoughtful rather than angry. They're not trying to match our capabilities. They're trying to exceed them. And they're willing to fail repeatedly in pursuit of that goal. That's madness, Porthos said. Failure wastes resources, does it? Minho Park had become Earth's military liaison, and his ships now patrolled in regions where council vessels once operated unopposed. His tactical doctrine was spreading among minor species, teaching them that overwhelming force could be countered with superior mobility and unconventional thinking. The council realized too late that they'd made a fundamental error. They'd assumed humanity needed the council more than the council needed humanity. But Earth had brought something new to the galaxy. Genuine innovation driven by competition and the freedom to fail and try again. The council had optimized for stability. Humanity optimized for growth. Velkrin spent a week composing a new message to Earth. Not demands, not offers of subordination, a genuine request for diplomatic relations between equal powers. He rewrote it 7 times, each version stripping away more condescension and adding more respect. The message acknowledged Earth's independence. It proposed trade agreements with fair terms. It suggested technology exchanges based on mutual benefit. It was everything the original client species accords hadn't been: respectful, equitable, and genuinely cooperative. He transmitted it with something he hadn't felt in 200 years as High Arbiter: uncertainty about the response. In the Sol system, Jiwoo Kim received the message in his new office. He was Earth's Secretary of Interstellar Affairs now, coordinating humanity's expansion into the galaxy. The walls displayed star charts showing Earth's growing network of alliances, trade routes, and exploration targets. Yuna, Minho, and Hajin joined him to review the council's communication. They read it together in silence. They're asking permission now, Yuna noted with quiet satisfaction. Not demanding, asking. Because they finally understand we don't need them.